Alright, 저기 동화 미tö바단 대화대반자 아주 동화 세고월에 대화도 주고월에 지사되니 인자다 대화주비기 탑람디 다지게 치 튕게 돈에 주비하다 낭삼류 돈에 죽다니 예배 나네다 아주 조다 낭삼류 돈에 주고 그래 사실 니고랑 아주다 낭삼로 가네스타제 디기 주비하다 동화 세계 탑람 삼로 간에칸스 땅고리 세제 오도스 진행할 수 있는 마 지게 도시고로와.
Good morning. All of us sitting here, in fact all beings everywhere, we want to experience only happiness, a happiness that is never punctuated by a moment of pain or suffering. And as we looked at yesterday, the happiness we long for will come about in dependence on us accumulating appropriate causes. But the suffering we wish to avoid, this too, though, comes about in dependence on causes, so those we need to strive to eliminate. And everything we do is directed to accumulate causes we believe will lead to happiness and avoiding those that we believe will lead to suffering. And there are two methods, and primarily in society we focus on methods relating to the physical, or in other words, not to do with our mind. Whereas, as we looked at yesterday, it's the internal, the mental, the mind that is actually primary in terms of cultivating the causes that lead to happiness and eliminating causes that will otherwise lead to suffering. The purpose then of the Buddha Dharma and what we are looking at here is the method for transforming our mind through accumulating causes that will lead to happiness and eliminating causes that will otherwise lead to suffering.
안에네 자다 저기 남부 상기 비게다 랍제초소디 낭 삼로 규와탄 위토네 아니 지게 갈소레 안에 아주 디기 주비하다 동아세야 탑람 도스트고레 에사지 데네 자다 저기 낭비기 최 남부 상기 비최세 추 뒤샤바나 가르치는 뒤거스네 다와 땡주다 아니 저바 차와메 바세 딩야는 바추 뒤루고레 에사지 자다 다와 땡주세디 가르세네 저기 뒤시기 최저고 간르치네 유단 견제를 되네 용마도 유단 견라 마도 바제 저기네 요 말에서다 아주 디기지네 유단 견제를 되네 주고 용고거래 아니 동아시네 유단 견라 되네 용고거래 세상 유단 견라 되네 주마도 유단 견라 마도 바 저거지야 요 말에서 되네 켈림베 따와디 다와 땡주세요라 디나신다 유단 균제매네 현실을 뭐보 최간의 현실을 되네 누줍되어 마도 현실을 마도바 니가요 말에서 세상을 되네 주고래서 디켈림바데 켈림베 다와 땡주세 땡주 직질에 제보 규현실을 되네 용고래서 땡주세 다저바 처음에 봐서야지 아주 융하기 저버디게 현실에 미니비게 자와 제고래서 네버지교 말에서 대당한도 저버 송야디 현실이야 차와게 차와셔야지 바송제 아니지게 차와미 제바 제고래서지 다지상 디니자 다와 땡주는 저버 차와미 바세디 가상 다낭비 최기 추 뒤샤베나 즉 다와 땡주 저 처만 바디니시날 뒤그래서지 다와 땡주세디 다디 디제 안지산 저버 차와미 바디니시라고 그래서 가상한도 디고 띵 어쩌시셔와.
Yesterday I spoke about how the principal topic of the Buddha Dharma is how to transform our mind. Because it's through this process of transforming our mind that we will achieve a state of lasting, stable happiness, happiness that is never punctuated by a moment of suffering. And the Buddha Dharma, or Buddhism itself, can be condensed into the view of dependence arising and conduct of non-harmfulness. The view of dependence arising can understand as dependency on causes and conditions, because it's through the accumulation of the appropriate causes that a specific result will follow. Happiness is a result. Our long for happiness is a result that comes about in dependence on the accumulation of the appropriate causes. Suffering, which we wish to avoid, this too is a result, and it also, though, comes about in dependence on causes. All results, everything we long for, can only be achieved independence on the accumulation of the appropriate causes. And the understanding and acceptance of this is accepting the view of Buddhism, the view of dependence arising. Conduct is the conduct of not harming. So this is where one commits to bringing no harm to oneself or others through one's behavior, physical behavior, or way of speaking. So this is the condensed presentation of Buddhism into view and conduct.
안당하는 저기 륜하게 주바 채화세대 륜하게 주베트네 샬레 뇌바데 강샬리아 뇌바다 제제바나 주바 채화세도 채화 매바스네 샬레 미뇌바 샬레 펜바로 시식으로와 지난디 다 주바 채화단 채마 매바 채화 매바세데 륜하게 주바데 간스 퉁구레 람나 낭 삼로 궁로레데 라리고레제 샬리아 삼로 샬리아 뇌베 삼바당 샬레 콩로게 샬레 마가와 샬레 뇌베게 삼로 줘나 디기 genji lunga ge joba de shala nebe ge jawa li hores digi genje ne jesa nebe jawa li hores jesa da shalya samlo na na yang shalya pembe samba da jamba da zewe samlo chiyo ba na digi genje lunga ge joba de shalya pemba chung gore je jesa lunga ge joba shalya neba chewa jaba da shalya pembe lunga joba de yang na kan ju kan den li ge do shin kunlo na lo na ge samlo kunlo de la ra le ge dos kunlo jamje da pembe samba ji yena lunga joba de ha shalya mineba pemba ji ja da lunga kunlo de ya shalya chewe nebe chikin sembe samda da khonro da de ne shebe ne lunga ge joba de ha shalya chewa chung gu de ji san joba chewa me ba na joba chewa yu chewa ge joba de ge gyu ga le de ne yung sen nang samlo kunlo de la ra le ge do ji san de ne yin za ma ju ge samlo thwa ne ji san shalya nöba yongya samlo kunlong shenla kongro tang nöba chiga samlo de ba meba suyo kores dene za nga shenla penbi ki samba jamba dan ziwe samba di nga zuki nöba kongpe de da yarge tang kores yaji o dene za da nga zu zowa sem ki tohne nyamne che kwaya di sem kanga yongya sem di meba suyo da pando yoga sem samlo di ya ngo kongpe tang ya di diri sa de kaza nga zu dus chine da dordi rup shewa na kasang shuya di dende shuruwa da.
Yesterday we also looked at how the conduct of Buddhism, this conduct of not bringing harm through our speech or our behavior, this comes about independence on the motivating mind. If the mind is is dominated by self-interest or thoughts of harm towards others, the way that mind is expressed will bring harm. Whereas if the mind is gentle, is open and kind, then one's behavior, speech will bring about harmony and bring about the benefit of others. So here too, we saw how in dependence on the mind, one's behavior can either be harmful or beneficial. So therefore, here too, we saw how the mind is primary. Thereby, both in terms of view and conduct, we need to take care of our mind and ensure, now in the context of conduct, that our mind is virtuous, wholesome, because if we have an open heart, we will act in a way that brings benefit to ourselves and others, that doesn't bring harm to others. Here, we need to concentrate on training our mind, strengthening our habituation to wholesome ways of thinking, and weakening our habituation to harmful ways of thinking, such as self-interest or negative thoughts about others. And in proportion to how we strengthen our habituation to being open-minded, kind-hearted, our behavior will be ever more bring about ever more harmony with others.
저기 지속이 롭종으로 저기 기기 롭종 다 신의 롭종 가르치네 롭종의 생발라 아니 기엔지라 된지 연지 선의 장치 신고로 와서 먼저 지소나려 지소 롭종 가르치면은 딜라칸 기엔지 띵고로 기엔지를 때는 장의 신고로 디나신에 나 저기 셈 삼로 야가리다 누가리다 파예와 체지 매와서야 sim membi nyobi somebody de chal dunga yoya ge ku samlo di mewa soya da digyu yoya ge samlo di ma zo ngo computer ta bala di lapkhen gi hen chi ko gore chesan gi hen di pe ma se ra le ba gi chi mo re sa de chesan gi hen chi ko gore chesan gi hen se ne dang po thwe de ne re da se thwe de ne thwe be don da la rang ye chi ji je ba je 이나 많이 제바지 따다리기 되면 삼로나 제바지 되니게 삼로디 돈 제바진 따다 삼바지 돈다다 하고 거기도 되네 셈 약보리도 검제 안도 검발에 되네 아니 말을 체대다 아니 지게 내갑기 대화다 체디 디기리 동화세아레 내갑기 지게 하 디기주야 타도 하나 산유고 본 토투에 돼 되네 용거리에 세징어서 온도신 쉬바래
Furthermore, yesterday, we looked at how, just like in society, where we rely on the guidance of others to develop skills, in particular, in relying on people in the broader sense of the word, who are our teachers, to impart knowledge and guidance, so that we can develop knowledge, develop skills, develop our talents. And this is very much the case in our context here of developing our mind, of developing our way of thinking. We need to rely on a teacher who has abundant knowledge and experience based on that knowledge. And the method to employ, to rely on a teacher, is the three: hearing, reflecting, and meditating, where we need to continuously engage in a process of hearing, of gathering information, and whilst doing so, reflect on that meaning, thinking for ourselves, is this correct? Is this valid? How is it appropriate or applicable in my life? And where it is, how can I employ it in my life? How can I make use of this knowledge? How can I integrate it? So this process of training comes about in dependence on relying on a skilled and knowledgeable teacher. This process of hearing and reflecting, it is our individual responsibility to do so, but there is an interdependence through relying on a teacher. And to the extent that we gather vast forms of amounts of knowledge and integrate that through the process of reflection, we will later be able to meditate on that, coming to integrate it very deeply within our very nature. And this then is the technique by which we attain lasting happiness, particular happiness of enlightenment, where we develop ourselves to the point of perfection.
지게 칼라야 보라 차발라 델야 안에 칼라게 소에 규제로서 맞잖아 차사 망보지 좀제 아니 지게 차야 되는데 칼라야 보라 신보라시 리거로와 라거로와 어디나 신아 저기 디규드비게 삼로등고 공피도 따바다 낸심 동아야게 삼로도 봐 매버 쇠발라 아니 튕기로 망보지 고거래 튕기 찍대다데 저기 말 랍칸지 고고래 랍칸 매는 안 저기 신금말에 마시나 디메바서다 신금말 랍칸지 고고래지 나 안에 랍칸 줘봐나 소소기 원에 장 투에게 땡지 고고래 디 튕기 마사나 양 랍칸 줘봐네 소소 원에 튕기 마사나 죽투야 매로와 지사 되네 인자다 튕기 망보지 고고요 바래 되네 인자다 안 저기 가사당 랍칸 tek 튕긴 뒤에 직대 계획신이 계침보래 사당한 주도 쉬 차바래 난 내내 마셔야지 소소용원에다 띵 직대인들 간에 스코브리 에세데 안디 캬바젠데 스코브리 에세데 마셔야지 차거래
In our daily life, everything we do is motivated to experience happiness and to avoid any kinds of problems. And to do so, we need to accumulate quite a number of causes and favorable circumstances. And this is the case if we're trying to achieve something of great purpose in our life, and certainly is the case too for our mundane daily activities. For example, if you're going to cook a meal, you need many circumstances to come together. You need the right ingredients, they need to be of appropriate quality, they can't be a bit rotten, and one needs the various materials for cooking. So this is the case for something very mundane. It's also the case for doing something of greater importance in our life. And it certainly is the case for when we embark on the journey of transforming our mind. And the process that we embark on here in the Buddha Dharma isn't merely some self-improvement, but a radical transformation of our way of thinking, developing ourselves to an extent that we have yet ever to achieve. And there are a number of favorable circumstances that are indispensable for this to come about. And yesterday we looked at a foundational cause, that of our spiritual teacher. And now today we'll continue to look at other circumstances which are indispensable in order to be able to spiritually develop. Turning to the fourth verse. This human body, complete with freedoms and opportunities, is the ideal basis for accomplishing the Dharma. This being so, reflect on the extraordinary difficult manner in which it was obtained, and forthwith fulfill its potential, Jampol Jak.
Denju Sangye Milu di Tin Denju gi Milu Saji Kubores, Di Denju gi Milu Sadi da Che Dubigena Che Dubia Yamlin Chele, and the Tin Kabat Papa Yaksho de Res and Che Dubi Tin do Nalana Sidi, and Sangena, Janju Samba, and Chasangi Lama di Chasangi Danganzuki, Che Yamlin Chigi Tin di Yaksho dida, Denju gi Milu Rimbushi Sadi, said Sungores, Chasanga Denju Milu Rimbuche, and the Anzuli di Toko Hore.
Yesterday we looked at the indispensable favorable circumstance of a spiritual teacher. But in order to be able to develop and gain realization of the teachings and guidance that our teacher is imparting to us, we need to have a suitable basis, a suitable life. And that is what is presented here. This human body, complete with freedoms and opportunities, is the ideal basis for accomplishing the Dharma. To attain the results of the Dharma, the yogic attainments or siddhis, this requires a precious human rebirth, this human body that we have attained.
Dinanegada Milu Nagana, Chick Denju Milu Sadi, and Kabata Church be named Yashore Sachi. Tisada Milu in Zetamje, that church picked Yapochai rivers in the chapping Eva Yomares, and the Yashore Garrison Denju Milu. That Denju Milu said, Ludelia, Kishur Masona, Jobgero, Dawaketa, Chusangwa said, and then Jobgesangwa, there, and Chi Tunginda, Narangi when a Tunkin, Denege. Keshiro Zio, and Keshu Jubgeta, Sandy Ludin Delada, then Jugi Milurela Songorwa.
The very best basis for accomplishing the Dharma, for cultivating the Dharma within our own mind, is a human life. But not just any human life, a human life that is marked by or has attained the 8 freedoms and the 10 opportunities. And the 10 opportunities are divided into both those which are inner and circumstantial. So a human life, whilst indispensable in our context, doesn't refer to any human being, but to those who also have the freedoms and opportunities.
Nadanga to be Nyawa, Ida, Dundro, Desolia, Kidebena, Church, go up the Ragomare. Chesatanganzu, Nyawal Makiavache, Idala, my Dundula Maki, Milkewanza, Deso, and the Daware, Gasore, Dawa, Chichagora, Dene, Dawa, yes, Yada. Dinigi, and Yawa, Ida, Dundra Sada, Dinigi, Jig, Latzeringbo, Ladla given a Latzeringbo Sada, Jine, Jig, Ondusine, and the Jig, Masanwala, so by Gewada, Dinigi Gevina, and the church, Tungi, Yaposh Kopsrego, Maresage. Just not Dineza, Dadang Anzo Garasenem. Desu dawa re ngazu disu yoba re se ngazu nyawa ne ma nyawa ba ne mara ida ne mara dundro ma ngazu mide ro wala chesa ngazu ongbo chesa chawa la cherengbo marwa chesa dawa re se ne chesa dawa se de ngazu chue nyamle ji ko ha disu yoba se ko ko don de.
The term freedom refers to having the freedom to embark on practicing the Dharma, to having the free time to practice the Dharma. And whilst people feel they're quite overwhelmed and their lives are very busy, compared to other classes of beings, we do have freedom. We do have the free time to engage in cultivating the Dharma. There are those in the lower realms of animals, spirits, and hell beings whose suffering is so intense that they have no hope of accomplishing the Dharma. And then there are those who are long life gods who also are too distracted by their pleasures to engage in cultivating the Dharma. And then there are also human beings who have severe mental or physical impediments which prevent them from accomplishing the Dharma, from transforming their minds. So those who have the 8 freedoms have the qualities that are required in order to have the free time or the leisure to accomplish the Dharma.
Just Joe Labding Anzulia, Church, Tungin, Anzula, Yoba de la Joa, what the Tungi, Joa, the Yoba, Joa, Karatungi Yorson, Penang Anzulia, Anzu Church, Samrojune, Zemlin, the Sangi, Pemena, Sangi Chusun Yomarwa, in Church Yamar, the Sangi Penaya, Sangi Chumasona, Sum Memana. Di negap de le chue jia yo ma sang yi pe yo de na chan sang yi chue sun yu ma sun ba za chue sun yu chue jia go me ba de da sang yi pe chue sun je chue ge ji gyang ji ko nyam so wa na zo so ba na da yang an zu chue jia me ro ba ka zeng ye ma sun pe ba de zo sa ro me ba cha sa ro ba de me ro de ne gi ne chue jia go pra go ma res ji zang an zu lu jo wa se de ka de chang yo sen Sanji Tumbli Dilia, Sanji Payo, Sanji Jumden Payor, Sanji Jumden to you choose soon, Sanji Jumden to you choose somebody, Dadi Nelson Chedi Yuderes. Yoba Mase and Chedi, Yamlin Jeje, Mansolia, Yamlin Chikon, Lobden chicken, and Lama Yudebenaris. She's a D2 Chazalanganzo Yudebares. She's a D man at the nation and the Chiksang man, Manzolia, Chuchia, Cobrago, Maride, D2 getting a Dading until your heads. Da sosul and the Tibene, Sosulia and Church, Chulia, and Jig. Church said the Yomar, the Kimillen Bena, Church Gobra, Dins and Anzo Lokdama Javad, Church Deva, thinking on the Tsar, Manzu Milu, the top Tsar. She's not sure you said the Lakidir. And Milu, the Chu, you said, Chu, you said Mesa, that she can give Mesa Lumbo Kuji Likidivena, and Church Gobra Gomara. The name Anzolia. Mi Kiaware, and Anzu Chu Satile, you are going to kill your Anzu Chulia, Loktama Chule, Deva Yobare, Chesan Rangung when the Tungan Chesan Sawara, Shan Yungene, Manzukoedi, San Yi Zumle, Peva, San Yu Chu, Sumba, San Yu Chu, Sumba, Chu Dada Yoba, Dene San Yigi, Chu Yobadi, Nyamlen Jene, Matsama by Nyamlen Jene, Nyamion, Manzulo, Lukan. Lobdi Yobachi, Chesan Tungan Chesan Sadi, Chesan Anzu Miludi Dade, Manzu Ludin.
Opportunities or endowments we can understand as being the required circumstances in order to spiritually develop. Freedoms we understand as having the freedom or the leisure to cultivate the Dharma, and then the opportunities refer to the required circumstances, and these include that the Buddha, the historical Buddha, came to our world, because if he had never come to our world, it would not be possible for his teachings to abide here. And following from that, A further opportunity is that the Buddha didn't just come to this world, but he taught. A third is that those teachings, the lineage of those teachings, has been kept alive and vibrant throughout this passage of 2,500 years. And therefore, we can encounter qualified spiritual teachers now who can guide us. And moreover, from our side, we don't have strong karmic impediments such as wrong views, which would mean even though we encounter the Dharma, it would just make no sense to us, and we would reject it. So these are some of the opportunities, which are the favorable circumstances. So looking at the two, freedoms and opportunities, we can understand them as being, we have achieved this precious human life, and we can put it to good use because we have the freedom or leisure to train our mind in the Dharma, and those favorable circumstances, such as the teachings and teachers existing in this world, those are the opportunities that they do exist.
지사 딜이야 nga 주기 지기 삼로 규호다에게 냠는 제대 냠는 제고 고고 유에도 바지 냠는 제 투여시리스 지사 nga 줄리딘들 제 투고레스 베네 눈도로 시게베네 제 투여가 요 말레스 그래서 눈도로 근데 냐와다 이자세탄가 통고 말데 nga 통시스기 눈도되게 베네 콜라비아에 그 냠네 지기 삼로 되는데 땅고래 되네 지역으로서 라비아 각보래 람나에 건조 냠네 제투에 리딩이 차네 건조 라비아 갈래 각보래 네 람네 건조 제투에 요 말레스 나주 리딩이 될래 캐바도 파바 라바이나 리딩 디텐 랭아조 장도로 제 라바이나 만주기 만주 랍투와 나주기 뒤에 제바이나 제투에게 튕긴 차상 사되고 리딩이 한지들이스 제산디 배마세 계침보지나 자침보 휴치리스 월다도 나주 리딩이 계침보다 판도 침보 여바디 오르지고로 당바도 송걸 받아
The purpose of reflecting on this precious human life that we've achieved, which is complete with freedoms and opportunities, is to challenge how we currently take it for granted. We don't compare ourselves to other classes of beings. So if we ignore the unseen beings and just look at animals, whilst they have their own individual qualities, they are dominated by an ignorance and stupidity. They have no capacity to train their minds like humans can. An animal can be in an environment where teachings are continuously given. They will not understand. And even if it were, and not only don't they understand, but they are unable to train their mind like humans can. So we tend to take for granted what we have. And this we need at the outset to challenge. Because taking something for granted, one will not put it to good use, one will not value it. This meditation, then, serves to challenge that we take our life for granted. It also gives us a sense of joy at what we have achieved, because this life came about in dependence on causes that we ourselves accumulated. And this then, these two together, not taking life for granted, this generational joy, will lead us to recognize just how beneficial an opportunity we have each achieved.
어디네 자당 저기 미르딘데야 남주에 마소나 직바 삼로 따야데 시우주에 되긴 베주 따야데 되게 최고래서 베주 삼로 직바 예바 나신이 저기 류디기 베주 따투고래서 자당 저기 도시 든로라 미나신 나 삼로 남주기 직바 대요 말에 예바이나 저기 류기 전에야 베주 따투 말래서 배나 저기 땅 밀 삼다베나当这个米亚这旅店的南这边是大一点，账目刚刚有办的CT setup呀，按这个看过谁啊的，那操劳别些谁啊的，记得账目个东啊谁个他不那么的了，三六个南这边是哦，今天是最后的，今天就那账目谁图谁了，刚刚谁图了什么？南这边是大呢，南这边是南这个三八拿心。但是旅基，这个解决的有这些的怕谁呢？谁突击？这个张美东啊，谁个谁突过的？这个第哪些草外呢？草外个东啊，要不然第谁突呀个？第那个南这边去打击旅基谁突过的？第哪些 저기 남주에다 직 lumbat인데 봐 타는 거 쉬우 좋아요 베네 제가 남주기 비셔 다제다 편이 줘야 가는 수고 선배 삼다데 제게 남주 써야지네 안디 남주 되네 써야나 안에 야고양서 삼비 삼로딘데 코에도 되네라 류기 비셔 다제 안은 아주 류디기 되네기 남주 써 두고 소주네 네 강아세야다 디나신 당아도 로레다라서 봐다 되네기 다 다유종 제가 로해 차상 남주기 비셔 다 남주기 비셔 다와나지 남주에 대형 봐 하고 와나지 류기 지금 배시다 되는 게 두고 와서 제산지 아주 밀려래서 다디소 안주기 치용업이서 하러지 규변적으로 가르쳐야나 사야도에서나 남주에 배시다제 아니 류기도 잡아진 두고 와서 니나신 안주 동화살에 삼로 간에 쉬용고도 삼로 간에 식방고도 간에 시야 냠는 지오세베 남주에 삼로 배시다도 디소 하고에도 되는 안주 삼리 토안에 곰 잡지를 디파 동화세야 된 디기 주에 두고 그래서 제상 안주기 미류된들이야 되니게 남주에 쉬우 여바체 남주에 여바 나신 디기엔 류기 토안에 디 자와지 쳐서 쇠투에기 류된 된지 켜바지 그래서 제상 dunro기 류된 아지술이야 남주에 되네 깔에 허버디 제가 삼배네 류된이 되네 그 쇠투야 말이야 주토야 말이야 제래 제상 되네 자 안주 류된디 미 류된들이야 마시게 남주에 야고 쉬우여 봐 남주에 야고 여바 나시 류된디 토네 배제 당투 여바 제 쇠투 여바 되네 된 켜바진 차도요 제사 되네자 게외 자와 동화세야다 샘진 냠는 토네 디기세야 디기 주비야도 동화세야라 된 약쇼디 미 류된들에 아저기 냠르지 투고래 사제 안드송고 당한 저기 띠인데 배마서 야보다 짜침부 인바데 시오침바도 바 만술로 오르지고래 되네 오르지도 짜침보다 예침보다 안서 다고 야고 와다 제사디 비셔야고 당고고라 짜침보다 직 야고지는 안서 뭐 마시면은 배저 유셔로 배네 세로다 더지 팔라로 셔배네 디지 아 먹어네 노로 두스 마 유셔로 배저 뭐 마셔로 와 지금 뭐도 최근디게 어디다 약을 하셨으면 다고 접지 파티 제가 되는 거 종문의 배제 다지 지게 변조 먹었어야 여러와 튕게 하고 줘야 여러와 어디 나시리에 세팅 만수 류틴데 뭐지 지고 왔다데
The outstanding quality of human beings is our intelligence. This intelligence of human beings that really makes us stand out from other classes of beings. If we compare to animals, there really is a vast difference between our intelligence and that of animals. And to be sure, animals have their individual species, have their own set of qualities. But in terms of intelligence, humans really stand out. We are able to recognize the suffering that we experience, and moreover, we are able to devise solutions, really quite complex solutions to our difficulties. And not only then are we able to think of these, but we are able then, usually in collaboration with many others, to implement our solutions. And this has led to incredible material development in our world. So when the weather is like it is now, it's a little colder, animals, what can they do? Maybe huddle a little bit together, stand under trees if it's raining, and their fur will naturally grow a bit thicker, and that's it. Humans, on the other hand, we've developed different clothing, heating for our homes, and so forth. This is only possible because of our incredible intelligence. And we only need to look in our lifetime at the remarkable technological development that has come about. And this is all independent on human intelligence and human cooperation. And in fact, in the coming years, human beings are once again going to travel to and walk on the moon. This is something quite remarkable, and only possible because of our human intelligence. The purpose, again, of this presentation is to recognize the qualities of this life, and to see and thereby to value them, to value what is possible. Because if we value something, we do not take it for granted. If in your home you have a large treasure, but you have not recognized its potential, it will just sit there. and its potential will never be achieved. The treasure we here are trying to recognize is our human potential. Our potential to recognize problems, devise solutions, and implement those solutions. And through our training in the Buddha Dharma, we're looking at the actual causes of our suffering, the actual skillful solutions to that, the cultivation of virtue, and then the techniques for cultivating that virtue, to engage in those. This then is how we put our life to good use, not to let this incredible opportunity that each and every one of us has achieved, let it go to waste. This is recognizing the treasure that we all possess and putting it to good use.
지당네 대등한 저 den주 밀리다 한이 세베나 den주 밀리 추르비된 초통아 바레서 송거래 제가 가르rellam나 아주 미디엔티데 지당 체 통통제 안동아 강아 망부 용네 제가 강아 용도 강한디에 세자베 탑람데 된 거래 제가 디 탑람데 가용 것도 다 디니기 최제반의 디 야고도 선배게 디 대를 용거래 제 사세들 하디게 체령 부슈래 제제 제가 하가서 강아 균님들 강아 매나 동 강아 세게 탑람데 된 거만 말이나 탑람 제거만 말은 반자 최제에 고합데 뉴유마도요 말이야 지단에 되는 시에서 제가 하가실 때 먼저 나지 민나진 최념의 양절 하가시 요를 다루와 지단 하신다 요를 지다 지찬에 하디게 체령보레자 먼저 민나신 강아요 말에 강아의 메디 강아의 매나 아니 강아 세게 탑람 최제에게 된 거 말이야 와지래 제사다 먼저 밀이야 하다 미진의 미디 체통아 강아 망아요라 강아 망아요 봐인자 강아의 세게 탑람디 된 거래 제자 최시하고 합야가 요래서 김제로 디순 거래
Another component of our human rebirth that makes it so remarkable, and it maybe sounds a bit counterintuitive, but a component that is indispensable for human beings is that we do actually have problems, sufferings, and difficulties, and we don't only occasionally encounter them, but continuously. Because there are some classes of beings, in particular those who are long life gods, whose lives are filled with pleasure. They do not encounter problems and difficulties. In fact, they have a life of abundant pleasure. The great benefit that comes from suffering is that it spurs us to look for solutions. It spurs us, in our cases, to look to the Dharma, to look towards Buddhism, to see, are there solutions? And when our life is difficult, we will look more closely at those solutions. And based on the knowledge we've gained, we will strive to apply it because we want relief from our suffering. Those beings, these long life gods who have an abundance of pleasure, they do not look for freedom from suffering because they're not even aware that such a freedom could possibly exist, and they're not even aware of, they don't encounter cause difficulties. And yeah, just to say it for clarity from what you may have read elsewhere, there certainly are beings in God realms who practice the Dharma, and but they are of a very different class. But for the vast majority, and those that I'm comparing to here, their lives have an abundance of pleasure. So therefore, they have no motivation to look for freedom from samsara. Whereas we, who are human beings and who have the freedoms and opportunities, we have the ideal basis to look at our life, to look at ourselves, and seek out those actual causes of our suffering and the real solutions to them, and implement them in our own mind.
Ana de sumbadle chenye barke wi susumla se jasanganju denjugi militi pe chik tobialia kale habore jere jasan chunya barka bi 깔레카보래 제자디 녜비게 깔레카보 임바다 녜디 단주 밀리름 버치 깨야야 유가르가르 요바데 삼당고래 저 som라시 얘네 당한도 단주 밀리 토로데 지에야 레라오래 세데 베네가 메와 차야래 게 멍부어레스 제자다 게 멍부데 게디기 메바차 냐바요 말 제자 지레 레라오레스 다 그지 마지부 윤능부 되변로 잘라스마도 되고 말레스 제자 데네기 통동시레스 제가 데네 인자 데네기 냐바라 깨비 딘 캬바젠디 토예기 간에 토도 된마 삼당 가제버도 두도 되네 삼단에 데네 인자 데네기 김자 삼단에 다디딩아 된 유비 유디비 갑딜이야 베지하고 땅도 그래 베지하고 땅 그래서 그래
We've looked at the first two lines. This human body, complete with freedoms and opportunities, is the ideal basis for accomplishing the Dharma. Now we come to the third line. This being so, reflect on the extraordinarily difficult manner in which it was obtained. Here we reflect on the causes that we each obtained, or accumulated in our previous lives. And these were done with some energy, some vigor, to accumulate causes of sufficient strength, and also the complete causes that have led to this remarkable rebirth that we have all achieved. So this is the first thing to recognize. And it also serves to counter how we take this life, this opportunity, for granted. Rather here, we should recognize and thereby rejoice that we have accumulated those causes to achieve a life such as this. And thereafter we reflect, however, for this life to be sustained, there's actually not too much that one can do, especially when you compare to the number of reasons that can lead to this life ending. There are a multitude of things that can befall one that will lead to this life either ending or radically transforming, and the opportunity to engage in spiritual development ceasing. But there are not many causes that in this life we can engage in cultivating to make this life and this opportunity be sustained. So the purpose of this reflection is again to give us confidence, a strength of mind, a determination to utilize this life well, to not take it for granted.
아니 다된된 제시 잠바타 아시데 다 지기 된나 된바 아니 지기 냠는 체알이야 아니 베수 제고래 사시 송고래.
Having recognized then that the real value of this life and that it was difficult to obtain, we come to the conclusion of the meditation in the fourth line, and forthwith fulfill its potential, Jampal-drak.
다 된다는데 냠는 제고래서도 다 가르쳐고래서 돼 딜리고로와 제가 되는 장은 둔조다 미 류딘데라 둔조다 미니시나 강아세게 탑럼이야가 미 류딘들의 디기 망아 롱줘요 봐 둔조라 데솔이야 냐와다 둔조 데서 매되게 제가 되는 인사다 당은 저기 된다 된바세도 체대려야 아니 디기 주비게 탑럼이네 삼당고래 냠는 제고래 아니 개와 치말 하다 미고방 토야 돼 아니 냠는 제고래 된자 마주게 타르바 토야다 산조고방 토야게 차상 냠는데 다데 고합된 개바전 될야 냠는 제 고합 뒤수다 되니기 튕기 유디가블 냠는 제고래에서 왔다 된다 된바 죄식해야 돼.
Here we recognize what we have achieved. We have achieved a freedom. Free time, leisure time, certainly compared to other realms. We aren't overwhelmed by suffering like beings in the lower realms are, or overwhelmed by an abundance of pleasure like beings such as the long-life gods are. Rather, because of the problems and difficulties we continuously encounter, we have a motivation to improve our minds, to gain freedom from this state. And not only do we have that motivation, we have the human intelligence that enables us to actually develop our mind to the extent that we do achieve freedom. And this then is the purpose or the potential of this life.
dine zada ngānsu duandā tenpa, tā kiawa chima ngāsō la nā nyāwa ida dundro de, dīgis la kia mōwa che, kiawa chima ya lhāda mī ten kia tuya ki ta, ngānsu tablam kar che gore, kar samtang gore, gom gore, nyamne che gore, labna, tā kar denma, tā ngānsu samlo gyuwa tane, samlo de kanis tang gore, di gom ya de nyamne che di che gore sung gore ta, di kar che gore sene, kiawa chima lhāda mī goma, tse digi ten khebar chen na shin chigi an kewa chimaya lhada mi ko wa thoya liya dadu gyu kar sa gore sene lunga yisu nyeje timbu tsurim sungo gore ese tsurim sungo gore esa sungo gore chesan tsurim sungo gore ese
potential of this human life is to cultivate the causes that will lead to the desired goals. Other beings, they can't even recognize that the potential of accumulating causes that will lead to good rebirths, liberation, and enlightenment. We, however, can recognize that we have that potential, and not only recognize that we have the potential, but we can come to understand what the causes are to bring about ongoing spiritual development. And the immediate cause to cultivate is the primary cause that will lead to further good rebirths, the primary cause that led to our rebirth as a human being, and that is ethical restraint, particular ethical restraint of body, speech, and mind. That is the primary cause that, if we cultivate in this life, will lead to a good rebirth as a human or God in our future lives.
지산 시주도 매바 마차바는 깨와 치마세도 요레스 지산 깨와 치마 양자 깨와 랭고고레스 지산 깨와 치마 깨와 렌세데라 안로단 덴조세 니마도 요 마레스 덴조세도 하다 미고 바기 깨데레 데네 안로세야디 냐와이다 둔돌케레스 다지 간주 남바 상기비 깨와 가시 켈리네 디순고르바 데네 인자 깨와 치마 하다 미고 안돌레 파 타르제 하다 미고 바데레 깨고고이나 아니 가르삼나 가르다고서 lunga 예수님이 주름 송고그래 에세 송고래 지난 깨왕아지 케멜레 바다 내 규데 케멜레 바나네 곧 데네게 삼다시오 말다 당한주게 남바 상기비기 다 깨왕아시 여바 켈렘 바다 내 규데 디깨왕아치 여바다 디깨왕아마다 제 치마세 깨데 규단 깨레 데네 가산슈바네 규단 깨레 데네 용고베자 깨와 치마 하다 미고 계기 유가르 고고레스네 아니 가서 lunga 예수님이 주름 송고그래 디 손바이나 델레테네 게 도그래 에사지 송고르와
In Buddhism it's presented that when we die, our consciousness does not cease. It goes on into a next life. It arises in a new body, in a new form. When death comes, we will take rebirth, and we can only travel, our consciousness can only travel in one of two directions, either falling down into the lower realms and arising as an animal or a spirit or a hell being, or continuing in the upper realms as a human or as a god. There is no other direction other than to continue in the higher realms or fall into the lower realms. If one doesn't accept reincarnation, then one doesn't really need to think too much about this. But whether one accepts reincarnation or not, death will come, and our consciousness will continue and arise in a new life form. And which life form that is depends on the causes that have been accumulated. Because if, for example, one is reborn as a human in one's next life, just like in this life we are reborn as a human, that is a result that comes about independent on a cause. And the primary cause, the principal cause for rebirth in the upper realms as a human being or as a god is ethical restraint. So therefore, ethical restraint being the primary cause that leads to the result of a good rebirth as a human being is what must indispensably be cultivated.
당에 류가 이숨요건에 샬라 뇌바세디 지금에 선배 삼다야들이 디 삼다야들라 주름송세워 주름세워래.
Its primary cause is ethical restraint of body, speech, and mind. As has been said many times, Buddhist practice is about transforming the mind. So ethical restraint is an attitude, it's a mind, a way of thinking. And so what is it? It's the mental determination, the thought, the determination, I will not harm through my way of thinking, through my way of speaking, or my physical behavior.
지는 나기 권에 내가 세대 나기 권에 밀려 준시 고하다 현에 내가 미 진이 투부여 봐라 직 파지 주신의 주신전에 참아자봐 아니 나기 권에 직수셔봐 안 되게 시반에 나기 권에 내가 세거로 와 현에 내거로 와 류유 권에 안 샬이야 아니 가소래 지기 니도 다 자라 고마고라 소바다 되네 제베 미세발라 소바제네 샬레 뉴거 지사 삼로톤에 다디소 류마기 쮸바니데 가와요서 되지 가상다 슈바나시 삼묘군노톤에 샬레 녀바 지긴 삼베 니 차와 지긴 삼베게 되네기 고마고기 메고 콜리아 고화 땅에 주인 시긴 삼베 군노 되지 키에나 류마기 쮸바디 감발리고로 지사 디네자 다 지금에서 병을 나 류규 나 류가상 류가 이숨세 이규토네 샬야 네베 삼바디 기메 선배 삼다야 디디 야보면도 디기요 말에 선배 계주금에 선배 삼다 지사다 류가게 샬라 녀바 지금에 선배 삼로디 당한 디 삼로디 야도 기디나 다베나 마나줄 무티지 윤티지 기디나 디 삼로도 코르딩지 레고 코레 곰바 삼바 다베나디 냐주 추름 송알레고 지산 디니 소야디 개와치 말하라 미토의 류제스 규레스 규레기 규테네 테네 가소레 아저 헤이 고바토야다 미 고바 개발해야지 디용고레스 제사다 군노를 양아 저기 당한 두시는 게 개와 치마이네 나솔은 마 개와제 하나 하다 미전지 계제 된 되니기 토를 계지는 냠는지 그 고급라야 된 개발전된 토바 지기야 선배게 디던 다랑에 대인장에 류가 있으면 관에 시한이야 뇌배 자와 싸우기는 지금에 선배게 어두시는 삼노단에 디삼노 등한저 야네 양도 당국으로해서 그다 삼노 디다바이나 아주 개와치 말하다 미고만 토투그리에스 한 체델이네야 삼노 디다바네 체델이나 소설이야 강아 충하다 아니 지기 디기 망아 용그리에스 지산 체델이나 핑고레 개와치 마이나 핑고레 지산 디네엔사 삼노 디가 저기 다스는 저 삼노 규와 다타게 삼노 배시 다다 송고자 삼노 디야네 야도 삼도 공부 그래서 지산도 군노들이야 마타레니 개와치 말하다 미고바 통한솔을 메게 하다 미고 토바치기 디 토바에 된다랑이 릉에 있으며 그네 샬리아 뇌비 자와 싸우기는 지금이야 선배 삼로 디다네 야네 야도 땅고 그래서 디다바에 개와치 말하다 나솔에 기게 말에 하다 미고바를 토투 그래서 유디네시에서
Behavior that brings harm to others will be on the physical level, so engaging in physical conflict, maybe taking life, stealing from others, or verbal communication that brings harm will be lying to others, deceiving others, speaking in a harsh manner or a divisive manner. This is the kind of physical and verbal behavior that's easy to recognize that brings harm. And as mentioned yesterday, this comes about independence on an intention or a motivation to engage in such behavior. So therefore, the motivating mind is what leads to physical behavior or verbal communication being harmful or beneficial. So therefore, the training in ethics is training the mind. An ethical person from the perspective of Buddhism is someone whose mind is ethical. How do we then train our mind to be ethical? So the practice is called ethical restraint, because we're restraining our mind from going in a direction that is not ethical and ensuring it remains ethical. And we do so by meditating repeatedly over a sustained period on the result we long for. Continued good rebirths, not wanting to fall into the suffering lower realms or the time-wasting upper realms, but to have only good rebirths as a human or God. And so there we think about the result that we want to achieve by thinking of the benefits of having such results, and the faults of not having such results, such as falling to the lower realms. So here we think about the benefits and faults of being ethical or not being ethical that we will experience in future lives. And we also think about the benefits and faults of being ethical that will come in this life. So the benefits that we'll experience in this life from having an ethical mind, and the faults that will come from not being ethical in this life. In other words, we will speak to others in a harsh manner and so forth. So this, in brief, is the training. It's a determination, I will not bring harm. And why? Because of the faults that will follow in this life and future lives. Rather, I want the benefits that will follow in this life and future lives. And thinking about this, for example, just once, like now in the class when you're hearing it, this is good to do, creates an imprint, but it's not going to lead to transformation. Transformation comes through reflecting on the same topic repeatedly over a sustained period. Because as mentioned yesterday, transforming the mind means developing and strengthening virtuous habituations, habitual ways of thinking, and thereby breaking habitual ways of thinking that are non-virtuous. So this can only come about, like with every habit that we try to develop, through repeatedly over a sustained period, going through the same process, the same exercise, this meditation, on thinking about the goal we want to achieve and the benefits of achieving it, and the faults of not doing so. And then, in terms of the period of time between now and future lives, so in other words, in this life, the benefits that will come from being an ethical person, from engaging with others in an ethical way, and the faults that will follow from not doing so. So this is how one trains in ethics.
On that day, that's some logic carritan goes and Nazi Milike Bene, that Tungi Gangata, Kashel Tunya, Wakashel Tunya Ganga, the Negi, Gangamango Shungurva, Chizan Tunkin, you do you good caress and Jimbi Yamna Satiri acid. Chizan Dine Zadan, you get the Delia and the Chica Karshawarsena. The Negi Lunga Kasore, Sosugi, Tungienda, Kangi Tornina, Shalia, Sosugi, Yuan de Shien, Shien, the Sosugi, Yubenjo Torn, Nagashalia, Pember, Shalia, Pat, Jigging Sepe, Raw Jigging Sepe, Shalia, Dangin Sepe, Samlodi, Dangores, some Dangores. The Shalia Jigging Sepe, some Dangore, like Injimician, Chasantia, or Marda, the 2 egg in Yaroa, got Dango, Shalia Jigging Sepe, the Sosugi. Ganga Mateba Suzuki Jige Tungian Jigu Tugu Nube Maji Roshan Robache. Tangan Samlona like to Kartangosne, Jangaranku, Lu Longe, Keso, Chasalia, Shalia, and Jimba Tangin Sabing, Tangin Sabe, Jigging, Rock Jigging Sabe, Samlo de Jangores, the Samla Jangores, the Jamba in the Jawa Chima, and Hada me, Tangan to Kawaki Bene, Tungi Yaboya, Gudi Chakore. And the Dinashi, that Sobacom over Ejere, Soba, that Sobacom say Missy Migi, Sosalia, Gendün, Lamsa, same Tuche, Pala, Gendün, some Mataje, some Motubaje Delia, and Chiki, Sosalinja due to Vachores. This Sobacomba in the Yawa Chima, the Carrions and Sosalia, and Chiki, Su. Chick 2 way, the Tomway Chick, Sosalia, now to watch it, now to you don't watch it, and the Chick Wombola Soba Chazan, Sawa, the Niki Tungian Sawa to Yungo Eje, or do Sine, this was some Tangoreche, that Dambo, the name Zada, you got some die the Galioso, Yawa Chima, Ansola Hada Mukoma, Togu, Zangi, Lunga Yusmi, Yijud, Zaw in the Jigme, Save some logic down. The name Dinning Chilu Lonja Caritonina, Kansi Chicken, Yuba de Shalia, Patricia, Shalia, and Patangi Jiggins, raw jiggins, and be some Loshita. And the Dinesanta, Chick, Mission, you never chat the park corn large part new year, the netto in Jigme, some much was due to a jiggins, some Loshadi. And this would buy some Dijan Ores, Dijan, and then Digalia, and Caracores. The Gyatso dance of a million Dinigi, Tobago shows and big Molamian and the Jaguar. Or do send some of these so that they some Shidua. Dijamba in Gyatso, the Danju Milu said Togures, or just not Danju Milu, the Toy Gutires, do send some tango or Egere. So do that they shame that day. 现在这个的话，尊重设定上这个确定了，但是确定了呀，按这改性规别团呢，你们这个对吧？这样的，按你这样的，这叫我起码呢呀，点点了呀，按那个就确切呀，包括就建议对你对吧？这个用过的，实际上你看这的尊重设定，第西部的大概就初中说吧，尊重那西人呀，这的话初中节。金杯念的些，随便念的，尊重念的，你念的西的，就给我起码彻底的在电视里面留人不去拿去，给我起码电视里面留投下个具体的，加上大家还是都什么大问呢？给我俺妈还是念嘛去了，你就是下上念的接掉了，加上大家接掉了哇，这不明掉了，加上忙把那的那些原来的具体做好了，什么的当过来，什么的是当过来，什么的是那电视里面留投过来是好的。
To attain rebirth in the upper realms, the happier migrations, ethical restraint is indispensable. It is the primary cause. So, through having an ethical mind, and thereby one's physical behavior and speech being ethical, we are creating the causes to be born as a human being again. But we know from what we observe in our world, many human beings are in situations that are really quite unfortunate, where their suffering is quite intense. So ethics on its own is insufficient to enable spiritual development. For example, people who are truly impoverished, they are born as a human being, so they are experiencing the result of their ethical behavior in past lives. However, they are impoverished, and their life is dominated by trying to sustain their lives, trying to have sufficient to eat and to feed themselves and their families. So further causes are required for a rebirth, not merely just to be one of a human being, but to be a precious human rebirth, a rebirth that's marked with the 8 freedoms and the 10 opportunities. So whilst the first cause, the indispensable cause, is ethics, the second is that of generosity. Generosity is the cause that leads to an abundance of favorable material circumstances in our future lives. And this, again, is indispensable for spiritual seekers, so that their life is not dominated by material impoverishment, by struggling to sustain their lives, to have at least sufficient to sustain their lives, and ideally an abundance so that they can share with others. So therefore, the second cause to cultivate is that of generosity. Just like ethics, all the training in Buddhism is the training of the mind. So generosity may be expressed as material giving, of giving food to the hungry, giving money to a charity, but that would be the expression of generosity. Generosity is actually the wish to give. So therefore, one here trains one's mind in developing the wish to give. And therefore, even those who do not have an abundance of material goods or wealth, they do not, and who are therefore incapable of materially expressing the wish to give, they still can train just as well in generosity by developing the wish to give. Moreover, where one does give materially, one should only do so where one has an abundance, so as not to harm oneself, but to share one's abundance where one can. Moreover, one can give in far broader ways than just materially, which is really quite a limited way to give. One can share one's skills and talents and of oneself, one's friendship with others. But again, the training of generosity is cultivating the wish to give of oneself to others. That's then the second key training. The third is patience. What patience is not is staying quiet when someone's giving you a hard time, or being stoic in the face of adversity. Patience, like every training in Buddhism, is training your mind. A person who has trained their mind in patience, their mind will stay undisturbed in the face of adversity. Whatever a person who's trained well in patience, whatever experience they encounter, whether it's life's difficulties, individuals giving them a hard time, or their own mind being quite disturbed, a patient person will not be disturbed by this. They will be not thrown off their path or distracted, turned away from their true objectives by these encounters. Rather, their mind will stay undisturbed, meaning it's calm. It's dominated by other virtuous minds such as love, compassion, and wisdom. A person who is patient may well respond to what people are saying to them or difficult circumstances, but their mind will be free of anger and self-interest, but dominated by love and wisdom and so forth. This is the mind of patience. It comes about through recognizing the value of others, the importance of the goal that one is striving for, and that responses that are influenced by minds such as anger or self-interest are not appropriate. The result of patience is that in future lives, one will readily build harmonious relationships with people one encounters. You'll meet people and immediately warm to them and they to you. Also, your physical faculties such as sight and hearing, these and mental faculties too, these will be complete. One will not have impediments there. So this is the third training, that of patience. The fourth is that of joyous perseverance. Joyous perseverance, again, it's a mind. It's not merely continuing, but it's a mind that delights in engaging in virtue. It's a mind that will delight in being ethical, that will delight in being generous, that will delight in being patient. It's a mind that delights in virtue. And the result of this in future lives is that one will have a personality and inclination towards virtue. One will naturally be a virtuous person. One will naturally be interested in seeking out spiritual paths of development so that one can become an ever more virtuous, wholesome person. So this is the fourth cause, that of joyous perseverance. First being ethics, the second being generosity, the third being patience, and the fourth being joyous perseverance. And the final one is prayers, expressions of aspiration to attain precious human rebirths in life after life. So these are the 5 causes that are required, or it's usually expressed as 4, plus that of prayer. And we can, if they're sounding a little bit daunting, or that some of them maybe you don't feel you have much familiarity with, be aware you are experiencing the results of those same causes that you in your past lives have accumulated. You have done this before. You have accumulated the causes of ethical restraint, generosity, patience, joyous perseverance, and made prayers to achieve a life such as you have. Recognize this, take confidence that you can do this again, and you can build on what you have your natural inclination towards ethics, generosity, and so forth, and thereby develop ever stronger causes in what remains of this life.
Da dene gi ngaro samla tangwa de dushi ne sam tanggo re se da deso ane ji dele ya ane kunong le ya tone dene gi gewa de top chichung kyabren go re se re 제가 다 대신 저기 개와 치마 사람이 고바 토여기 된다 kunong dene 시케 제 삼다면은 지게 디 뉴바데 총알 채고래 지나 dene 자당 삼로리아 징에 샘전 탐제 능아의 대할 심전에 판도해야 된다는 게 상계 고방 토구도 시베 나 심전 탐지게 상계 고방 토브로 쇼시베 삼라시다 상계 고방 토비게 된다라 아니 게디 지금 능아 있으면 요건에 샤련에 봐서 긴지메 세베 삼라시다 되네랑 그 류로제 계속다 제바 탐제 샤려야 당기 야 권조라 푸긴 아니 샤려 마 샤려 당기 지긴 샘베게 삼라시다다 되니기 안데 제행기 녀바 가르체베네 파 셈마투바세 마투바지 코로마라 셈마투바 뒤도바지 셈베게 삼다야 Denegi ane gewe jawa de la muti je one jane deni ko ya pe akore ti muti ni jigin se pe ga shin zhou wa sam da ya du sin deni molam ja sam da wa na digi kunlo de la janju sim gyu kun ne la wa za jimbe denegi nyamne de pe ma se nupe shu chim bu cha gre je le jesa deni kun ne la je 류마이스 예주도 배출임 숨어 소바나 개와 치마 하다 미고 방토 유야 디레 개차그레 안 될때네 산지 고방토 유야 차고레스 지산디소 디니기 삼당 오레스야지 나 두시네 나도 나라 온 두시네 삼당 오레스 숨거다자
As you've heard so many times, the meaning of Buddhist practice is training the mind. Practice is training the mind. It is, whilst this may be expressed through speech and behavior, it is primarily mental. So therefore, an act that is ethical or generous, what makes it karmically, or what makes it develop a very powerful karmic cause or quite a weak karmic cause, is not the physical or verbal act itself, but it's the motivating mind. It's primarily the motivating mind. So the same physical or verbal act can either accumulate a weak virtuous cause or an exceptionally powerful virtuous cause, depending on the motivating mind. So therefore, if you have a motivation to be ethical, generous, patient, and engage with delight, in order to create the causes to have a good rebirth, this is excellent. This is a virtuous motivation, and that leads to virtuous activities and will lead to a good rebirth. But that's all it will lead to. Those same acts or minds of ethics and so forth, but with a far more powerful motivation, will lead to a much, much greater result. So here I encourage you to think of the needs of all beings. And here, we will cover this more in our time together, think of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Where one has such a motivation that I want to become a Buddha so that I can help all beings, in order to do so, I have to be ethical. And here I commit, I will never harm others. I'll never harm any being, no matter whom they are, in whatever circumstance, and not either verbally or physically, and I'll take care of my mind to make sure my mind doesn't go in the direction of negativity towards them, because I want to take all beings to enlightenment. It's the same act of ethics, but a far more powerful motivation. Likewise with generosity. I will keep myself open and receptive to all. I will give of myself to others. I will not close myself to others, no matter who they are or what circumstance. I will, at the very least, keep my heart open to them and thereby give of myself to others. And one can make offerings, for example, to the 3 jewels, but with a motivation that through this merit, may I be able to help all beings in the most meaningful of ways. So here too, one is engaging in the practice of generosity, but with a far more powerful motivation, and therefore the same act of generosity leads to a much greater result. So too with patience. One engages in the meditation on patience, but with an understanding that I'm doing this so as to create the causes to become a Buddha for the sake of others, not merely to prevent myself from falling into the lower realms and to rather have a good rebirth, but I will be patient in the face of all adverse circumstances, taking care of my mind, never responding with a mind such as anger or self-interest, but rather always keeping the welfare of others and first and foremost, and responding with love, compassion, and wisdom in order to create the causes to become a Buddha to help others. And in all these trainings, I will recognize where I have acted in accordance with my ambition, my motivation, and I'll rejoice in that. I'll take delight, pleasure in helping others, in being generous towards them, being ethical in their presence, being patient. And in this way, and I'll do so as to strengthen my causes of virtue, to become a Buddha for their sake. So here we see all these same trainings, ethics, generosity, patience, choice, perseverance, are now conjoined with a far more powerful motivation, not just the motivation to have a good rebirth, but a motivation to attain enlightenment so that we can be of greatest help to others. And the result of this is, not only are we creating causes to become a Buddha for the sake of others, but those same causes will also, as a side effect, ensure we attain good rebirths as we progress to enlightenment. So this is the most skillful way to cultivate these same causes.
지금 아주 기시셔다다 파전 넘주던 하 지금 아주 콘로라야다 데니기 지금 안에 봐 측소셔야다 배 년나 전부로 제자다 아주 유명해서 예제된 수름 숨긴 선배 삼로지다 아니 지금 샤헬야 지 콘로라야다 심 추바지 콘로라 지금에 선배 삼로 세보면 이디 먼저 니네야 배주 심으시고 약고야 되게 차고래 그냥 아주 쇼공 오버네야 지금 제레가이나 치료 마로니엘네 삼로나리아 다 디링이 룽아 이스뮤거네 샤리아 뇌비게 자와서 자와이네 지메야 선배 삼로 직다 데네네 제잔 미지투네 데네게 강아지빈데 데리아 콘로라제 두신 파 콘로라제 셈 추제 돼야지 자와이네 지메 선배 삼다웨나 데네게 삼로 다시비게 디기 기엔제네 년공아 좀 미치다시 투제디와 지게 카제예게 진나볼라야기 지게 고합레베네 어디가 투예게 판도신부여데 베네가 저기 삼로나래 삼로 펜바세야데 산유쇼게 추지 디네질랭아 랑긴 선배 삼다제 파 펜바다제 공다 니되베네 산유쇼게 데레니 조모제 디지털에 따다니 세투고래 그래서 매니가래야 삼로 펜바시티 땅으로와 어디나신 저기 디링가 미수투네 델리아 지금 융하게 뇌비기 잡아서 잡아기 지금에 아니게 쇠보검투바 지기 선배 편바다베 삼로디기 니모 등아 좀 미라 투제디와 지기 되네게 계시 두샤시와야 지기 셰 마셰래 캬바 용거래 안에 즉수 마셰야다 되네게 토네 아니 지게 쇠보검투에게 된된 캬바 용거 니네니 델리아 되네게 나 배시 신보여랑 소리
Throughout this day and our time together, and certainly from when you leave here and you go back to your homes and your daily lives, every day you encounter many people. You encounter them, they interact with you. And these situations, each and every one, is either a great opportunity to be of benefit or a great danger where we can cause harm. And here in particular, I'm referring to one's mental approach, where it's a great opportunity that when encountering someone, one can be open towards them, have a loving and caring attitude towards them, a gladness to be in their presence and a wish to help where one can, or one's mind can be tight and narrow and uptight and easily talking in a harmful manner or even acting in a harmful manner. What I encourage you to gain good familiarity with in this retreat, and then continue to cultivate when you're at home, is in your meditation to develop a determination. Everyone I encounter, I will ensure I do not bring harm to them. I will take care of my mind. I will guard it from coming under the influence of any harmful thoughts, and thereby be sure that I don't engage with others or interact with others in a way that brings harm. And this I apply to anyone that I meet directly or indirectly, and even someone that comes to mind. I will ensure my mind is not negative towards them. And by setting a genuine motivation, a sincere motivation in the morning, and then keeping that in mind as one goes about one's day, being mindful of this motivation every time you encounter someone, even if that you're encountering someone who's giving you a hard time or someone that you have a bad history with, you will have this voice in your head, this motivation you cultivated in the morning. This will remind you of what's truly important. I need to guard my mind and respond to this person in a skillful manner. And in this way, every opportunity we have where we directly meet others or even call them to mind will be an opportunity where we can practice ethics, generosity, patience, and joyous perseverance. In this way, we can accumulate vast stores of merit with great ease. We can also, perhaps you have some experience of it, is if you know you're going perhaps traveling the next day and you need to get up early or you have an early meeting, the night before, you go to bed early, you set a determination, I cannot oversleep tomorrow, and when your alarm goes off, you will get up because you'll be reminded, I need to get up this morning, I have an early departure. So too, when you do your meditations, don't just do them as a mere recitation, a repeating of a formula, but take the time where you can to arise in yourself with sincerity, the determination not to cause harm. And in this way, doing so repeatedly over a sustained period, change will come. So then thank you very much, and then we'll complete therefore this morning and continue this afternoon. Thank you all very much.